done with the valuable assistance of Mr. Robert H. Huss, without whose assistance it would have not have been possible. Some of the pictures are very poor, but they were the best we had to do with. The first series has to do with Christmas 1956. I will attempt to narrate a little bit as we go along to identify the people involved. The person you're looking at now is Mr. Michael Leahy, Sr. And that is Bertle Leaf, Sr. The pictures are taken at the Leaf home in Barrington. That again is Michael Leahy. That is Bertle Leaf. That is Milt McClure, Jr. That is George McClure. That is Bert Leaf and his son. This is Margaret Stedman McClure. This is Early Stedman Leaf. This is Early again. This is Margaret McClure. This is Francis Stedman Leahy. Bertle Leaf again. And this is the Leaf home in Barrington. That is Beulah Glendinning McClure. The picture is taken at 1208 State Street in Beardstown. That is Margaret McClure in the red. Her son, George, and Milt throwing snowballs. That is Margaret again. And George McClure. That is Milt McClure and George McClure. In Beardstown again. This is taken at Clear Lake Farm. This is Doris Overby Sutton Harwood, Margaret McClure, and Doris's husband, Al Sutton. This is Margaret McClure, Al Sutton, and Milton McClure Sr. This is a picture taken at the groundbreaking of the Beardstown swimming pool in about 1957. Most of the people in the picture are contractors or contractors' representatives, whose names have long since been forgotten. The person on the left is Milt McClure. That is Dudley Goodell, who was the Park District supervising overseer. The person on the left there is James Davis, who was the Park District Secretary. The person on the right there is Glenn Massey, who was a member of the Board of Park Directors, Park Commissioners. Those are the Park Commissioners: W. McKnight, Dal Welborn, Jim Davis. Unfortunately, the picture isn't as good as we would like. This apparently is a track meet at Beardstown High School, began about 1957. Here the pictures are so faint as not to be. That is Beulah Glendinning McClure. That is John R. Collins, clerk of the Circuit Court in Cass County, and that is his wife, Mary Virginia Collins. That is Margaret Stedman McClure. That is Margaret's mother, Mary Alice Stedman. Beulah McClure again, and behind her was Milt McClure, and Mrs. Stedman and Beulah McClure again. George McClure getting out of the car. Milt McClure was driving. This is Margaret McClure. This is Mrs. Stedman again. Mrs. Stedman and George McClure. Mrs. Stedman. These pictures are taken at 1208 State Street in Beardstown, as far as I can see at this point. Milton McClure, his mother Beulah McClure, and George McClure. Now, these pictures were taken at the dedication of the swimming pool in 1957. The preceding pictures were Mother's Day 1957, as it now appears. These pictures were taken by Milton McClure from the high dive. He was panning a little too rapidly. Like all of us, he'd had no experience taking pictures with a rather cheap moving picture camera. But that's the way the swimming pool looked on the day of the dedication. Panning was much too rapid. That's Del Welborn on the left, Bill Cowan there, Dal Welborn in the middle, W. McKnight, Carl Schmidt. The Beardstown High School Band. It was made quite an occasion because we'd been to the Supreme Court to get permission to build the pool, and this was quite the culmination of quite a lot of effort on the part of the Park Board and its commissioners.
And its legal staff.
And its legal staff. These are the people sitting on the stand where the speeches are to be made and so on. That is Milton McClure speaking. That is John H. Glenn, then Mayor of Beardstown, and John J. White, who gave the dedication address. That's Jim Davis, Glenn Tillett in the background. That is Margaret McClure there, Milton McClure. George McClure behind. This is George McClure's 10th birthday party. Unfortunately, the pictures are very dark because it was a dark day. I think it was raining part of the time. Pictures were taken at 1208 State Street in Beardstown. big boy is Donnie Jones, and it's George McClure riding on his back. This was taken in the backyard of 1208 State. Believe it or not, Donnie Jones and George McClure were the same age. This picture is Milt McClure as an attendant at the junior-senior prom. I think he was either a freshman or a sophomore. Now we're going to see the last run of the last Burlington passenger train on the Beardstown division of the Chicago-Burlington-Quincy Railroad. George Stedman held this run because he was the senior conductor on the division at that time. The engineer was a gentleman named Venters. I do not know who the third member of the crew was. The picture there in the front is George McClure. Mrs. Venters is in the front, and Mrs. Stedman is hiding behind Mrs. Venters. Mrs. Stedman is now in the middle. I think it's... Now Margaret Stedman McClure is in the middle. The train is pulling out on its last trip. I think it goes down to the southern part of Illinois, near St. Louis, where the run ends. That was the last run of the Peanut, as it was called. It had a baggage compartment and a very small passenger compartment in the back of the train, and nobody rode it.
More crew members.
That's Margaret Stedman McClure there. It is a good picture. And now we go to a place over in Schuyler County, which I describe only as pony camp. George loved to go to pony camp. He and Donnie Jones would go over there and stay at a week at a time, usually twice during the summer. And these are just scenes from pony camp. The smaller boy, of course, is George McClure. The larger boy is Donnie Jones. But they spent many happy hours over there. That's Beulah McClure and her sister, Marguerite Glendenning Young. She was married to Robert Gardner Young from Harvard, Illinois. That is George Stedman and Beulah McClure and Aunt Margie. That is Aunt Margie on the right, George Stedman, Beulah McClure on the left, and Mrs. Stedman on the right. There's Aunt Margie again with Milton McClure, Sr. That's Aunt Margie. Very good picture of her. This is on the Illinois River. I think that's Milt McClure skiing behind our first boat. Mm-hmm. That's pony camp again, obviously. It was Donnie Jones, the big boy. I don't know who the third blonde, tow-headed little boy is. I don't know who that boy is. This is the 1958 prom. Those are the attendants. Milt, I think, was one of the attendants. I can't pick him out. That's Bill Leistritz and his date, whoever she was, I don't know. That is Milt McClure, dressed for the prom, for the 1958 prom. He and Bill Leistritz went to the prom together, double dated. And this again is on the Illinois River. That's Margaret McClure, George. I believe I can't tell, that's Milt McClure driving the boat. Truman Hicks. And that is Alberta Hicks, if we get a chance to see her face. That's Margaret McClure at Grosse Pointe, Michigan, visiting with the Leahys. That's on the Illinois River again. That's Margaret McClure. George McClure running the boat and eating. Margaret again. Now this is at Grosse Pointe, Michigan. That's Michael Leahy Jr. and Milt McClure driving a Leahy car in Grosse Pointe. That's Mrs. Leahy, Frances Stedman Leahy, and Margaret McClure on the left. That's Milt McClure, Michael Leahy Jr., and a friend of his, Margaret and Frances. Margaret McClure. Michael Leahy's garden, of which he was very proud. These are scenes from high school football. Probably a mistake to take these pictures because you can't identify anybody, but I think it's the Beardstown-Rushville homecoming game, which I believe Beardstown lost. Fortunately, there's not too much of it. Guess I was wrong. I think there is too much of them.
Was a long game.
Okay. Okay. This is Christmas, 1957. George McClure had wanted a puppy all fall, and that is Jet Black. He named him Jet, and he's a little Labrador. And as you'll see later in this film, Jet gets bigger.
Big lad.
That is Florence Johnson, Early Stedman Leaf's husband's aunt. This George McClure and Bertha Leaf Jr. Milt McClure Sr. and George. I don't know who that is for sure. That's Milt and George. That's Bertha Leaf Sr. and his two children. That's Bertha again. Bert Sr. and Bert Jr. Milt.